Do these rules help or hurt Ken Paxton's case, do you think? If you're Tony Busby, if you're the defense attorney for Ken Paxton, what do you think about the rules?
Yeah, I think overall the Paxton defense team should be satisfied and reasonably happy. They're going to get witnesses. They're going to have an ability to question witnesses. They're going to be able to seek a summary judgment, a motion to dismiss at the beginning, which is only a simple majority threshold. They probably would have liked the Attorney General's wife to be able to vote, although in the end, I think the Senate made the right decision to allow her to participate, which is what the Constitution requires, but to not allow her to be part of deliberations or to vote. Overall, look, I don't think at the end of this, if Paxton is removed from office, his defense team is going to be able to claim that the Senate rules weren't fair. They're much more fair to him than what we saw in the House, where Paxton's team really had no ability to provide any information or witnesses or testimony or anything at all. They have an opportunity to have their day in court, and they're going to seek a summary judgment at the beginning. We'll see whether the Senate has 16 votes to dismiss all the charges or some of them potentially. And then depending on that, we'll have a trial.
How likely is that summary judgment where a majority of the senators would just say, hey, you know what, we looked at it, you're good to go, the case is dismissed?
Yeah, what's interesting to me about that is I think the problem with this summary judgment is that would get ruled on at the very beginning, right? So Paxton's defense team wouldn't be able to present evidence, call up witnesses, provide testimony, make their case, right? So they'd have to basically take the view that a majority of the Senate believes there is not enough evidence for the trial to continue. And I don't know, that seems to be a high bar. I don't think a lot of Republican senators want to be doing this. And I don't think Paxton ultimately is going to be removed from office. I think that 2/3 threshold is high. That would require 9 senators who are Republicans to join with all 12 Democrats. I think that's a high threshold. But I also was struck by something the Lieutenant Governor said recently. I might have been on WFA or somewhere else, where he said, look, we want this to be fair. We want this to go through the full process. He seemed to sort of put a little bit of cold water on the idea of a summary judgment. That might make it possible for Democrats and others to say, oh, the Senate Republicans are coming for their own. They're not taking it seriously. From everything I can see, the Senate's taking this seriously. This rules package is pretty serious. Senators themselves have not issued statements saying how they feel about the trial itself. This thing has been, I think, handled much more professionally, much more seriously than it was in the House.
Yeah, I think you're right about the Senate taking it seriously, because no one's really, no one's talking on the record, and some of them aren't even talking off the record to me and other reporters down there. We'll get into the specific rules here in just a moment, but one of the things that stood out to me is that each side gets 24 hours to present evidence. This is going to be a quick trial.
Yeah, I think that's right. And of course, September, is an interesting time because there's been a lot of chatter in Austin that we'll have a school choice special session in the month of September. Right. So if the trial were to last, weeks, which is something the Paxton defense team has talked about, if they're going to call something like 60 or 65 witnesses, that might be hard to get done in a 24-hour window. But if it's going to take weeks, that could chew up that entire month of September. And that's, these things end up having to work against other things that the legislature might want to be doing. So yeah, I think you might be looking at a week. Again, it's going to depend on some of these pretrial motions. It's going to depend on how many witnesses there are, how much evidence and testimony there is. But I don't think this is going to be weeks. I think it's going to be, 7 to 10 days.
Matt, Ken Paxton is required to be there according to one of the rules. Do you think that he will speak? And what do you expect that scene will be like? Because everyone in that room knows Ken Paxton.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unusual situation, right? It's a historic situation. He served in the Senate. He served in the House. He's been a statewide official for quite a while. His wife's in the Senate. He's been politically aligned with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick for some time, not just on sort of Trump stuff, but on other things. It must be interesting. Imagine being a criminal defendant, right? It's kind of an out-of-body experience for any of us to consider. But then imagine doing it in front of a jury of people that you know well. Generally, you wouldn't know anyone on a jury because anyone that knows the defendant would be struck. So it's an unusual situation, and he's gonna have to sit there and take it all in as a defendant would. The question for me is whether he's going to testify or not, and that's high risk, high reward. Generally speaking, criminal defense attorneys, and I know this isn't technically a criminal case. I don't even know what word we use to describe it, because it's not civil and it's not criminal. It's in some third category that we don't know what to call it. But generally, you don't put your defendant on the stand unless you think that the jury is at risk of finding a guilty verdict. If you don't think the case has been proven, then you don't. Then there's just too much risk. And certainly there are some bad facts here for the attorney general, certainly related to the affair, related to doing things for this donor. And I know that Paxton himself and his defense team believe he's not violated any law, and that's why he has said he's innocent from the very beginning. But he may have to answer some questions in ways that will be embarrassing, that may do some political damage, that might be hard for him to answer truthfully or correctly or fully without doing some damage. So that to me is going to be a huge question. Of course, if they get the motion to dismiss, then we don't have that at all. I think there's a chance they may dismiss some of the articles, but not all of them. That may be something to watch.